At Morixa Tales, we believe in the power of storytelling. Our scripts weave together deep emotions and dramatic turns to deliver justice where it is most needed. Experience captivating mysteries where the truth eventually shines through, leaving a lasting impact on your heart and mind.
After my therapy session that afternoon, just before 4, my doctor suddenly locked the door and slipped a piece of paper into my pocket as she walked me out. She whispered, "Don't say anything. Don't react. Read it when you're alone." Sitting in my car, hands trembling, I unfolded the note. My heart nearly stopped. "Don't go home. Run away from your husband." I froze. But later that night, when I overheard his conversation, I finally understood. My doctor wasn't just warning me. She had just saved my life. I'm so grateful you're here with me. Before we dive deeper, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments so we can connect. Your presence means everything. Quick note: this story blends fictionalized elements for entertainment and insight. Any similarities to names or places are coincidental, but the lessons I'm sharing, those are invaluable. Now let's continue. The photo got 2,847 likes in 3 hours. Me, my husband Julian, my sister Eleanor, and my daughter Lily, all smiling. Caption: happiness is priceless. What those 2,847 people didn't see Julian's hand gripping my waist so tight it would leave bruises by evening. Eleanor texting my husband while standing right next to me. Lily hadn't looked me in the eye for 2 weeks. Welcome to my perfect life. The life that was slowly killing me. Though at that moment, standing in our Portland home on that Monday morning, I didn't know just how literal that was. It was March 17th, the kind of spring morning that makes Portland worth the rain. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my home office, catching the framed architectural awards on the wall behind my desk. Caldwell Design Associates, my firm, my name. Just last week, we'd landed the city's $50 million contract for the new waterfront development, the biggest win of my career. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was staring at my laptop screen, trying to remember what I'd been working on 5 minutes ago. Mom. Lily's voice drifted from the kitchen flat and distant. "Are you coming down for breakfast?" I glanced at the clock. 7:30. How had 30 minutes vanished? I'd sat down at 7 to review the Henderson project files. The screen showed a half-written email I didn't remember starting. "Coming, sweetheart." I called back, closing the laptop. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the vitamin organizer on my desk. Monday's compartment. The 3 pills Julian prepared for me every Sunday night lined up in perfect order. He'd started doing it 6 months ago, around the time I mentioned feeling tired all the time. "Just want to take care of you, babe," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "You work so hard. Let me handle the small stuff." I swallowed the pills dry, grabbed my coffee mug, and headed downstairs. The kitchen looked like something from a design magazine. Open concept Italian marble countertops, custom cabinetry. I designed every detail myself 3 years ago when Eleanor moved in. Temporarily, she'd said, just until she got back on her feet after her divorce. 3 years later, she was still here, still temporary. "There she is," Julian said, looking up from his phone with that smile that used to make my heart flutter. Now, it just made my stomach tighten. He wore a crisp white shirt sleeves, rolled up his dark hair, perfectly styled. 48 hours from now, I'd learn he'd maxed out 3 credit cards I didn't know existed. But that Monday morning, he just looked like the successful real estate developer everyone thought he was. "How's my brilliant wife this morning?" Eleanor glanced up from her tablet, her blonde hair swept into an effortless ponytail. We shared the same green eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, but lately, when I looked at her, I saw a stranger. "Morning, sis. Coffee's fresh." Lily sat at the kitchen island, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate. 13 years old, caught somewhere between childhood and whatever came next. Her dark hair hung forward, hiding her face. She didn't look up when I sat down beside her. "Hey, baby," I said softly, touching her shoulder. She flinched, actually flinched. "Everything okay?" "Fine." One word, clipped, cold. Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, typed something quickly, then pocketed it with a smile. "Big day today, Clara, that Henderson presentation." Henderson. The name rang a bell, distant and fuzzy. Right, yes, the Henderson Project. You remember the presentations at 10 right? His voice carried that edge of concern that had become so familiar lately, that gentle worry that somehow always made me feel smaller. You mentioned it 3 times yesterday. Had I couldn't remember. Eleanor looked up sharply. Are you okay, Clara? You seem, I don't know, distracted. I'm fine, I said automatically. Just tired. You've been tired a lot lately, Julian said, reaching across the table to take my hand. His grip was firm, too firm. Maybe we should think about you taking some time off. The firm's doing great. You've got a solid team. They can handle things for a while. Something cold slithered down my spine. I don't need time off. I just closed the biggest deal of my career. I know, babe. I'm just worried. He squeezed my hand. You've been forgetting things. Losing track of conversations. Yesterday you asked me the same question 4 times. Eleanor nodded, her expression all sisterly concern. He's right, Clara. I've noticed it too. You left the stove on twice last week, and remember that thing 3 months ago? The bath. The bath. December 14th. I'd fallen asleep in the bathtub, or so they told me. Lily found me. I'd woken up coughing water, confused, terrified. Julian said I'd taken an Ambien and gotten confused. I didn't remember taking anything. But I didn't remember much from that night at all. That was an accident, I whispered. Of course it was, Julian said quickly. We're just worried, that's all. Maybe you should talk to someone. Dr. Sterling's been helping, right? Dr. Sterling, my therapist. I'd started seeing her 2 months ago at Julian's suggestion. Weekly sessions every Monday at 3. She's helping. I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. The sessions left me feeling more confused than ever, like I was trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. My phone buzzed. Client call in 10 minutes. The video conference I'd forgotten about until the calendar reminder saved me. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my untouched coffee. I have a call. I need to... Of course, Julian said smoothly. Go. We'll clean up. I rushed back to my office, pulling up the project files with shaking hands. The call connected. 3 faces appeared on screen. The Westbrook Project, not Henderson, Westbrook. How had I confused them? Ms. Caldwell, the lead client said. Thanks for taking the time. We wanted to discuss the timeline revisions you sent over last week. Timeline revisions. I'd sent timeline revisions. I fumbled through my sent emails, found the document, scanned it while making agreeable noises. The revisions looked professional, thorough. I didn't remember writing them. The call lasted 40 minutes. I said the right things, apparently. They seemed satisfied. But when they disconnected, I sat in my leather chair staring at my reflection in the darkened monitor. I looked tired. No more than tired. Hollow. My skin had a grayish tinge. My eyes looked unfocused. Dark circles I'd been covering with increasingly heavy concealer. Julian's right, I whispered to my reflection. Something's wrong with me. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly know, sitting there in my beautiful office, in my beautiful house on that beautiful March morning, was that I was completely wrong. Nothing was wrong with me. Everything was wrong with them. At 2:45 that afternoon, I grabbed my purse and headed for Dr. Sterling's office. I thought I was going for help with stress. I had no idea I was about to receive a warning that would save my life. 20 minutes later, I sat in Dr. Sterling's waiting room, flipping through a magazine without reading a single word. The office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian in northwest Portland. All exposed brick and soft lighting meant to feel safe and welcoming. Normally, it worked. That afternoon, nothing could have made me feel safe. Dr. Sterling looked different when she finally opened the door to call me in. Her warm smile seemed forced tight around the edges. She kept glancing toward the hallway like she expected someone to burst through at any moment. Mid-50s silver hair pulled into a neat bun, she'd always projected calm competence. Today her hands trembled slightly as she gestured me inside. "Clara," she said quietly, "come in, please." I followed her into the familiar space. Cream-colored walls, 2 comfortable chairs positioned at an angle, a small table between them. The window overlooked the street below where afternoon traffic crawled past. Everything looked exactly as it always did, except Dr. Sterling locked the door behind us. She'd never done that before. "Is everything okay?" I asked, setting my purse down beside my usual chair. "Of course." Her voice didn't match her words. Please sit. How have you been since last week? I settled into the chair, pulling my cardigan tighter around myself. The room suddenly felt cold. Honestly, worse. The forgetting is getting really bad. This morning I confused two major clients. I'm terrified I'm going to mess up the waterfront project. Dr. Sterling leaned forward, her expression intent. Tell me about your morning routine. Walk me through it. I don't understand. Please, Clara, it's important. Something in her tone made me comply. I wake up around 6:30, make coffee, check emails. Around 7, Julian brings me my vitamins with breakfast. Her pen stopped moving across her notepad. Your vitamins. Who prepares those for you specifically? Julian does. Every Sunday night he fills the organizer for the week. It's sweet, really. He knows I forget to take them otherwise, so he... What vitamins exactly? Her voice had gone very quiet. I'm not sure. A multivitamin, I think. Something for energy. Maybe vitamin D. Julian handles it. He researches everything, makes sure I'm getting what I need. I paused, unease crawling up my spine. Why are you asking about this? Dr. Sterling's jaw tightened. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 3:15. Clara, I want you to tell me about your relationship with your husband. How would you describe his behavior toward you? He's wonderful, supportive, maybe a little overprotective lately, but he's just worried about me. I've been such a mess. You're not a mess. The sharpness in her voice startled me. She took a breath, seemed to recalibrate. I'm sorry. What I mean is the symptoms you're describing, the memory issues, the confusion, the fatigue they're concerning, but not in the way you think. I don't understand. I know. She set down her pen, folded her hands in her lap. Let's talk about something else for now. Your sister Eleanor. She lives with you. For the next 40 minutes, we talked. She asked careful questions about my daily life, about Julian's routines, about Eleanor's presence in the house, about Lily's recent distance. I answered, growing increasingly confused by the direction of the conversation. At 3:50, Dr. Sterling glanced at her watch and stood abruptly. I'm afraid we're out of time for today. Already? I checked my phone. The session had felt both endless and far too short. Yes. She walked me to the door, her movement stiff and controlled. Same time next week. Of course. Her hand reached for the doorknob, then hesitated. She turned back to me, and for just a moment, I saw something that looked like fear cross her face. Then she stepped closer, her body angled to block the view from the hallway, and her hand moved with practiced casualness toward my open purse hanging from my shoulder. I felt rather than saw the paper slip inside. Her lips barely moved. Parking lot. Read it in your car. Alone. Then the door was open and she was saying in a normal voice, Drive safely, Clara. I'll see you next week. I managed to nod, managed to walk down the hallway on legs that suddenly felt like water. The receptionist smiled and confirmed my next appointment. I made it to the elevator, pressed the button for the parking garage. My hand shook as I reached into my purse. The folded paper felt impossibly heavy. I waited until I was locked inside my car, windows up, before I unfolded it. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic. Clara, your husband and sister came to see me yesterday afternoon. They requested I confirm you are mentally unstable in order to file for conservatorship. They described symptoms I know you don't have. This is abuse. Do not let them know you're aware. Gather evidence first. Call this attorney Owen Brooks, 503-555-0147. Do not trust anyone in that house. Delete this message after reading. I'm sorry I can't help more directly. Patient confidentiality laws prevent me from reporting suspicions. You have to protect yourself. Dr. S. I read it 3 times. My hands shook so badly the paper rattled. Julian and Eleanor. Yesterday. Conservatorship. The words made no sense. They couldn't be true. This was my husband. My sister. The people who loved me. Weren't they? The parking garage was dim and quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the note, trying to make my brain work through the fog that had become my constant companion. Conservatorship meant control. Control of my decisions, my finances, my company, my life. The $50 million contract. The firm I'd built from nothing over 12 years. Everything with my name on it. No, I whispered. No, this is wrong. Dr. Sterling made a mistake. She misunderstood something. But the paper in my hands didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a lifeline. I pulled out my phone, typed Owen Brooks' number into my contacts, then deleted the message thread immediately. Photographed the note, uploaded it to a cloud account Julian didn't know about, then tore the paper into tiny pieces and scattered them in 3 different trash cans across the parking garage. My watch read 4:15. I needed to go home. Needed to see Julian and Eleanor and prove Dr. Sterling wrong. Needed this to be a misunderstanding. But as I started the car, my hands still trembling on the steering wheel, a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered a question I didn't want to answer. What if she's right? I pulled into our driveway at 4:47. Julian's Mercedes was parked in its usual spot. Eleanor's BMW beside it. The house looked perfect in the late afternoon light, all craftsman charm and manicured landscaping. I walked through the front door, pasted on a smile, and found Julian in the kitchen making dinner. "Hey, babe," he said, turning with a smile that used to make me feel safe. "How was therapy?" "Great," I lied. The word tasted like poison. "Really helpful." He kissed my forehead. His lips felt cold. "I'm glad. I worry about you." "I know you do." That night, I would discover exactly how necessary that lie was. That night, everything would change. But standing there in my kitchen, watching my husband chop vegetables while my sister set the table and my daughter did homework upstairs, I still didn't want to believe that the people I loved most in the world were trying to destroy me. Dinner that night was the hardest performance of my entire life. I made spaghetti carbonara, Julian's favorite, smiled when he complimented the pasta, laughed at his jokes about a difficult client, hugged Eleanor when she offered to do the dishes, asked Lily about her algebra test. Every moment felt like swallowing glass. The kitchen was warm with cooking smells and soft lighting, the dining table set with the good dishes Eleanor had insisted we use. We looked like a normal family. We sounded like one. Julian poured wine. Eleanor told a funny story about her day. Lily actually smiled at something her father said. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took another bite of pasta and asked Julian about his upcoming trip to Seattle. My voice didn't shake. My hands stayed steady on my fork. I was magnificent. "Just a quick overnight," he said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. His touch made my skin crawl. "Boring real estate conference. I'll be back Wednesday afternoon." Wednesday. 2 days away. Were they planning something for while he was gone, or was the Seattle trip itself part of the plan? "I'll miss you," I said. The lie tasted worse than the pasta. After dinner, we watched television together in the living room, some cooking competition Julian liked. I sat on the couch between him and Eleanor, my sister's shoulder pressed against mine, my husband's arm around my waist. Lily sprawled on the floor with her laptop. A perfect family evening. At 9:30, I yawned deliberately. "I'm exhausted. Think I'll head up early." "Good idea, babe." Julian kissed my forehead. "You've been pushing yourself too hard. Sleep in tomorrow if you can." Sleep in. Miss my morning meetings. Give them more ammunition to prove I was falling apart. "Maybe I will," I said. At 10 o'clock, Julian came upstairs with a glass of water and a small white pill. He'd been giving me sleeping pills for 3 months ever since the bathtub incident. "To help you rest," he'd said. "Doctor's orders." I'd never questioned which doctor. "Here you go, sweetheart." He handed me the pill and water, watching as I placed it on my tongue. I took a sip of water, tilted my head back like I was swallowing. "Good girl." He kissed me again. "Sleep well. I love you." "Love you too." The moment he left, closing the door behind him, I spat the pill into my hand and flushed it down the bathroom sink. Then I climbed into bed, fully clothed under the covers, and waited in the dark. The house settled around me. Footsteps on the stairs. Eleanor's door closing down the hall. Lily's music drifting from her room. Julian in his office. Our office, technically, though he'd claimed the second desk 6 months ago. I lay there, phone hidden under my pillow, listening to my heartbeat thunder in my ears. At 11:35, I heard voices downstairs. Low, careful. But the old house carried sound through the heating vents. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my backup phone from my nightstand, an old iPhone I kept for emergencies, and crept to the bedroom door. Opened it a crack. More voices, definitely coming from the kitchen. All 3 of them. My hands shook as I activated the voice recorder on the phone. I left my bedroom, moving down the hallway in bare feet, avoiding the floorboards I knew creaked. Lily's door stood open, her room empty. Eleanor's door, too. The staircase descended into darkness. I took each step with agonizing slowness, keeping to the edges where the wood was most solid. At the bottom, I could see light spilling from the kitchen doorway. I positioned myself on the bottom 3 stairs, hidden by the wall but close enough to hear clearly. The phone in my hand captured every word. "Don't trust it." Julian's voice tense with frustration. "Dr. Sterling didn't cooperate. She must have warned Clara." "How do you know?" Eleanor sounded worried. "Tonight Clara asked me about her medications. Strange questions like she'd never seen them before. She's never asked about them." My breath stopped. He'd noticed. God, he'd noticed. "Shit," Eleanor's chair scraped. "What do we do now?" "We accelerate the timeline. I'm calling Hayes tomorrow. We need those documents ready." "What about the conservatorship filing?" Eleanor again. "The lawyer said we need 2 doctors to confirm." "Forget the conservatorship." Julian's voice went cold. "It's taking too long. Hayes has another solution, cleaner." Silence. Then Eleanor. "Julian, what are you— Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." A pause. "The bathtub should have worked. This time we do it right." The bathtub should have worked. My vision tunneled. They'd tried to kill me. In December. The Ambien, the bath, finding me unconscious, it hadn't been an accident. They'd tried to drown me. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. "Daddy." Lily's voice. My daughter. My baby. "When is Mom leaving? I hate pretending." "Soon, Princess. Very soon." "Can I have her room when she's gone? It has the better closet." Eleanor laughed. Actually laughed. "Sure, sweetie, you can redecorate however you want." "What about the company?" Eleanor's voice turned businesslike. "Is the city contract secure? Forged her signature 2 weeks ago." Julian sounded satisfied. "Once she's declared incompetent, it becomes legal retroactively. Caldwell Design Associates will be mine. The $50 million will be mine. Everything will be mine." "Ours," Eleanor corrected. "Don't forget our agreement." "Right, ours." More discussion. Details about bank accounts, about my assets they discovered, about timing and logistics, and who would do what. I recorded it all, my hand clenched so tight around the phone I thought the case might crack. At 12:25, Lily yawned. "I'm going to bed." "Good night, sweetheart," Julian said. "Remember, tomorrow morning, act normal. Mom can't suspect anything." "I know, Daddy." I heard footsteps approaching and shrank back against the wall, praying the shadows would hide me. Lily passed within 3 feet, climbing the stairs without looking my way. I held my breath until her door closed. "I should go up too," Eleanor said. "Early meeting tomorrow." "Go ahead. I'll be up in a minute." I waited frozen as Eleanor's footsteps approached. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, and for one horrible moment I thought she'd seen me, but she was just checking her phone. Then she climbed past, disappearing down the hallway. Julian stayed in the kitchen. I heard him pouring something, probably the bourbon he thought I didn't know about. Ice clinking in a glass. I couldn't stay there any longer. If he came out, he'd see me. I crept back up the stairs, each step an eternity, not breathing until I was safely back in my bedroom with the door closed. I dove into bed, buried the phone under my pillow, and lay there shaking. The recording was 43 minutes long, 43 minutes of my family plotting to destroy me, to kill me. The bathtub should have worked. Lily wanted my room. Julian had forged my signature on the biggest contract of my career. I stared at the ceiling, tears sliding silently down my temples into my hair, and made a decision. I couldn't stay here. Not another day. Not another hour. At 1:15 in the morning, while my family slept, I began to plan. I had Dr. Sterling's note, though I'd destroyed the paper. I had the photo in my cloud account. I had the recording on my backup phone. I had Owen Brooks' number. And I had something they didn't know about the offshore trust I'd set up for Lily's education 5 years ago, worth $15 million that didn't appear on any documents they'd seen. They wanted to destroy me. They thought I was weak, confused, easy to eliminate. They'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. At 4:37 in the morning, while Julian snored in bed beside me, while Eleanor and Lily slept down the hall, I slipped out of our bedroom with a single suitcase. Inside clothes for 3 days, my laptop, every important document from my office safe. Dr. Sterling's number and the phone with the recording. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand. I left a note that said, "Went to the coast for a few days. Need to clear my head. Don't worry." Let them think I was running away, broken and confused. They had no idea I was about to come back fighting. The house was silent as I walked out. No goodbyes, no last looks back, just me, a suitcase, and $10,000 in emergency cash Julian didn't know existed. I'd kept that money in a hidden safe in my office closet for 5 years. My father taught me to always have an escape fund. "You never know when you'll need to disappear," he'd said. At the time, I'd thought he was paranoid. Now I understood he'd been wise. At 4:42, I closed the front door with a soft click and walked to my car parked on the street. I'd moved it the night before, claiming I wanted to clear the driveway for Julian's early departure to Seattle. He'd believed me, of course. Why wouldn't he? His drugged, confused wife was being helpful. The drive through empty Portland streets felt surreal. Dark houses, no traffic, the city still sleeping while my world burned down. At 5:15, I stopped at an ATM outside a closed grocery store and withdrew $500, the daily maximum. Another cushion. Then I drove to the Four Seasons downtown. The lobby gleamed with marble and soft lighting. A night clerk looked up as I approached, probably wondering what kind of emergency brought a woman with a single suitcase at 5:30 in the morning. "I need a room," I said. "Something quiet, high floor." "Of course, ma'am," she typed efficiently. "We have a junior suite available on the 18th floor. It's normally $350 per night, but there's a fee for early check-in." "That's fine." I placed my credit card on the counter, not the joint account, the one I'd opened years ago in just my name, linked to my business account, the one Julian had never asked about because he assumed he knew everything about my finances. He didn't. "Ms. Caldwell." She handed me the key card. "Elevator to your left. Will you need help with your luggage?" "No, thank you." The room was anonymous and perfect. City view king bed desk by the window. I locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and sat on the edge of the bed with my phone. 6 o'clock. Owen Brooks wouldn't appreciate a call this early, but Dr. Sterling had marked his number urgent. I dialed. He answered on the second ring. "Owen Brooks." "Mr. Brooks, my name is Clara Caldwell. Dr. Sophia Sterling gave me your number. My voice cracked. "I need help. Clara." His voice shifted, became focused. "Dr. Sterling called me yesterday. She explained the situation. Where are you?" "Four Seasons, downtown Portland." "Good. Safe public cameras everywhere." "Smart." A pause. "Can you get to my office by 8? Bring everything you have. Documents, recordings, anything. I have a recording from last night. My husband and sister discussing, I couldn't finish. Don't say more on the phone, just come to my office. Can you do that?" "Yes. 8th floor Morrison Street building. I'll have coffee ready." He hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, and finally let myself cry. Not quiet tears like last night. Real sobs that shook my whole body. 5 minutes. I gave myself 5 minutes to fall apart. Then I went into the bathroom, washed my face, and started writing down everything I could remember from the past 6 months. Every strange moment. Every forgotten conversation. Every time I'd felt confused or wrong or broken. By 7:30, I had 4 pages of notes. At 7:55, I walked into Owen Brooks' office. He wasn't what I expected. Mid-40s gray, threading through dark hair, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt like he'd thrown them on after my call. His office was all windows and bookshelves, law journals mixed with fiction, a coffee maker gurgling in the corner. "Clara," he shook my hand. "Sit. Tell me everything." I played him the recording. He listened for 8 minutes, then stopped it. His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. "Clara, they're not just planning to steal from you. They're planning to have you involuntarily committed. Against your will. This is..." He paused, searching for words. "This is one of the most calculated cases of domestic abuse I've ever seen." "I'm 35, I said. "I'm not elderly, I thought." "Doesn't matter. It's financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent. That's enough." He poured coffee, pushed a mug across his desk. "Here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to write down every financial account, every asset, every piece of property you own. Everything. Then I'm calling someone who can help us figure out what they've already done. He dialed a number, put it on speaker. Marcus Reed, a gravelly voice answered. Marcus Owen Brooks, I'm sending you a new client. Domestic abuse case, financial fraud, possible conspiracy. Can you take it? Always got time for your referrals, Owen. What are we looking at? Husband, sister-in-law, and teenage daughter conspiring to declare the client incompetent, steal her architectural firm worth millions, and commit her. We've got them on tape. A low whistle. Ballsy. Give me details. Owen outlined the situation while I sat frozen listening to my life become a case file. Dates, facts, evidence. Marcus asked questions. I answered. By 9 o'clock, I'd hired a private investigator I'd never met. I'll start with financials, Marcus said through the speaker. Bank records, credit cards, phone records. If they planned this, they've been stealing for a while. Give me a week. We may not have a week, Owen said. The husband's calling her right now. My phone sitting on Owen's desk lit up for the 47th time. Julian. Again. Don't answer, Owen said. Tactical silence. Let him worry. Worried people make mistakes. What about my daughter? The words came out broken. She was part of it. She said she wanted my room. Owen's expression softened. 13 years old. Old enough to be manipulated, young enough to be saved. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we protect you. My phone buzzed again. Text message. Then another. Julian. Where are you? Julian. Clara, answer me. Julian. This isn't funny. Julian. I'm calling the police. Let him, Owen said. You're an adult. You left a note. You're not missing. You're escaping. At 10 o'clock, Owen walked me through the strategy. Restraining orders, forensic accountants, documentation of the drugging. Everything would take time, but we had something they didn't know about. We had the truth on tape. And we had Marcus Reed, who'd just promised to uncover every dollar they'd stolen, every lie they'd told, every document they'd forged. What Marcus discovers this week will prove your family has been robbing you blind for months, Owen said. You just don't know half of it yet. He was right. Within 7 days, Marcus would uncover a conspiracy so deep, so calculated, that the recording from last night would seem like just the beginning. But sitting there in Owen's office that Tuesday morning, watching my phone explode with Julian's increasingly desperate calls, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. For 7 days, I lived in that Four Seasons hotel room like a ghost. While Marcus dug into my family's secrets, I watched my phone light up with increasingly desperate calls. Julian, 127 calls, 89 texts. Eleanor, 43 calls, 56 texts. Even Lily, 12 calls, each one a knife to my heart. I answered none of them. On March 21st, the third day after I'd escaped, I finally met Marcus Reed in person. Owen had arranged it at his office neutral ground with security cameras and thick walls. The man who walked through the door looked exactly like someone's kindly grandfather. Silver hair, warm brown eyes, cardigan over a pressed shirt. He carried a worn leather messenger bag and smiled when he shook my hand. Then he opened his laptop and showed me what my husband had really done with our money. Let's start with Julian, Marcus said, angling the screen toward me. We sat in Owen's conference room, coffee growing cold between us. Your husband hasn't been a real estate developer for 8 months. The room tilted. What? He was fired last August from Henderson Properties. Inappropriate use of company funds. They didn't press charges because he repaid it, but they terminated him. He's been lying to you since August 15th, but he goes to work every day. Meetings, calls that Seattle conference theater. Marcus pulled up bank statements. Look at your joint account. Salary deposit stopped August 15th. Every deposit since transfers from Caldwell Design, accounts that you authorized for household expenses. I stared at the numbers climbing month by month. 50,000 in September, 60,000 in October, 75 in November. How much total? $430,000 moved from your business accounts into joint accounts over 8 months, then spent. On what? Marcus's expression darkened. Paying down a $2.5 million gambling debt. The number made no sense. From what? Cryptocurrency speculation. He went all in during the 2023 boom, borrowed heavily to leverage his position. When the crash came last spring, he lost everything. Then he kept chasing losses, borrowing from progressively worse people. Marcus scrolled through recovered text messages. The last loan came from an organization the FBI's been watching, not the kind of people who accept late payments. He showed me the threats, graphic, specific, timelines with penalties that escalated weekly. They were going to kill him, I whispered. Yes, until he found a better solution, your $50 million city contract, your $8 million company, your personal assets. If he got control through conservatorship, he could pay them off and disappear. With Eleanor. Exactly. Day 4 brought revelations about my sister. Marcus set his coffee down carefully before speaking. Clara Eleanor doesn't do freelance design work. Yes, she does. Since her divorce, Eleanor hasn't filed taxes in 3 years. No business license, no client list, no portfolio. She's been living entirely off money you've given her. He paused. And there's something else. He pulled up a California court document. State of California versus Eleanor Harper Mills 2015. Who's Eleanor Harper Mills? Your sister, before she changed her name. Marcus met my eyes. Eleanor was convicted of financial fraud in 2015. She posed as a financial advisor and embezzled $300,000 from elderly clients. She served 18 months in a California prison. The conference room felt airless. That's impossible. I would have known. She changed her name legally after release. Dropped Mills, became Eleanor Harper, moved to Oregon. Started fresh. You never had reason to background check your own sister. She told me her divorce left her broke, that she needed help rebuilding. She's a professional con artist who found the perfect mark. His voice gentled. Someone who loved her unconditionally. Days 5 and 6 brought digital evidence. Marcus had remotely accessed the shared devices in my house legally, Owen assured me under protective surveillance authorization. I found a hidden folder on the iPad you and Julian shared. Marcus said during our video call on March 24th, it's called Operation Freedom. He shared his screen. My stomach turned. Timeline spreadsheets, forged documents bearing my signature, lists of doctors they'd contacted, medication schedules, financial projections, everything documented with chilling precision across 6 months of planning. Phase 1. Establish. Pattern of confusion. September to November 2024. Phase 2. Medical documentation. December 2024 to February 2025. Phase 3. Permanent solution. March to November 2025. Under Phase 3, one line in red text, target date, November 15th, 2025. They'd scheduled my death like a business meeting. This wasn't impulsive, Marcus said quietly. They've been planning since last September. The drugging, the gaslighting, the doctor visits, it's all here. Julian even kept notes on which medications produced which symptoms, adjusting dosages based on your reactions. I read through tears. My husband had researched destroying me with the same thoroughness he'd once used planning our anniversary vacations. On day 7, March 26th, Marcus and Owen sat across from me in my hotel suite. We have enough for criminal charges, Owen said. Conspiracy, fraud, forgery, attempted poisoning. The recording from your house, plus Marcus's findings, the DA would take this case tomorrow. But I heard hesitation in his voice. Marcus leaned forward. But there's something about the bathtub incident that bothers me. My hands went cold. What about it? December 14th, you nearly drowned in your bathtub. They told you it was an Ambien accident. You don't remember much. That's right. Clara, I pulled the hospital records from that night. Marcus's voice changed, became careful, gentle. You had 30 milligrams of Ambien in your system. That's 3 times a normal dose. You don't have an Ambien prescription. But Julian does, and his bottle from that week was missing 9 pills. The hotel room seemed to shrink around me. The ER doctor noted something else, subcutaneous bruising on both your shoulders, consistent with sustained downward pressure. At the time, they thought maybe paramedics caused it during rescue attempts. But combined with the Ambien level, what are you saying? Marcus's kind eyes went hard as stone. I'm saying that wasn't an accident, Clara. The wine Julian brought you that night, we found the glass still in evidence. It tested positive for Ambien residue. You were drugged, and those bruises on your shoulders, someone held you underwater. The room spun. He tried to kill me in December. Yes, and when Lily came home 90 minutes early and saved you, he switched to the long-term plan. The slow poisoning, the conservatorship, the staged institutional suicide scheduled for November. Marcus closed his laptop. I think December 14th was the first murder attempt. I sat frozen, processing the truth. Julian hadn't just been stealing from me for months. He'd already tried once to end my life. When that failed, he'd adapted, planned better, scheduled my death 8 months out to avoid suspicion. What do we do? I whispered. Owen answered. We prove it. Every piece. The bathtub attempt, the systematic poisoning. The financial conspiracy. The planned murder. We build a case so airtight that Julian and Eleanor spend decades in prison. How long will that take? Marcus smiled grimly. We start tomorrow, and Clara. By the time we're done, they won't know what hit them. On March 26th, Marcus arrived at Owen's office with a bag of equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Button cameras, voice-activated recorders, motion sensors, GPS trackers. He laid them across Owen's conference table like surgical instruments, each one smaller than I'd imagined possible. Is this legal? I asked, staring at cameras no bigger than shirt buttons. Marcus nodded. It's your house, your property, and Owen filed protective surveillance authorization based on Dr. Sterling's warning about your safety. Owen leaned forward, his expression serious. Let me be very clear about the legality, Clara. We're only placing cameras in common areas. Kitchen, living room, your home office, front entrance, hallway. No bedrooms, no bathrooms, only spaces where there's no reasonable expectation of absolute privacy. Your own home, Marcus added, where you have every right to install security, especially given documented threats to your well-being. How do we install them without Julian knowing? We don't need to enter. You still have your house keys, right? I did. I'd taken them when I left, though I hadn't thought about why. Julian's in Seattle until tomorrow night, Marcus said. Eleanor took Lily to the mall this afternoon. I've been tracking their phones. We have a 4-hour window. 3 hours later, I stood in my own kitchen, feeling like a stranger. Everything looked the same. The coffee maker I'd used every morning. The table where we'd eaten dinner the night I discovered their conspiracy. But it all felt like a stage set now. Props in someone else's play. Marcus worked quickly, his movements efficient, despite his grandfather appearance. Camera in the smoke detector above the stove, another in the bookshelf facing the living room, one more in the frame of my office door. They'll never notice, he said quietly, and they'll give us everything we need. He was right. The first week of footage was damning. Day 1. March 26th, 8:47 p.m. Julian and Eleanor in the kitchen. Thinking they were alone, thinking Clara was gone for good. Julian pulled Eleanor close and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, a kiss that proved everything Marcus had suspected about their relationship. How long Eleanor's voice captured perfectly by the smoke detector camera. Does it matter? Julian poured wine. She's gone. Probably holed up in some hotel too confused to think straight. What if she hired a lawyer? Julian laughed. With what proof we've been so careful, even if she tries to fight, who's going to believe her over us? The confused, forgetful wife who's been falling apart for months. Day 3, March 28th. Julian in my office rifling through my files, photographing documents with his phone, my business contracts, client lists, bank statements. Anything good, Eleanor called from downstairs. The offshore trust. I knew she had one. 15 million. Jesus Christ. My hidden asset. The one thing they hadn't found yet. Until now. Day 4. March 29th. Eleanor on her phone pacing the living room. Hayes, it's me. We need those documents faster. I don't care about your timeline. Julian's getting nervous. Yes, the signature samples are in your email. Just get it done. Hayes, the forger Marcus had been tracking. Day 6, March 31st. Julian at the kitchen computer, Google search history captured by the camera behind him. I watched Marcus replay it, zoom in on the screen. How to expedite conservatorship, Oregon. Involuntary commitment, mental health facility, transfer property, mentally incompetent person. He was researching how to destroy me with the same focus he'd once used planning our wedding. But the footage that broke me came on April 2nd. Lily in the living room, crying. Julian sitting beside her, his arm around her shoulders, in what would have looked like comfort if you didn't see the calculation in his eyes. "I don't want to lie about Mom anymore," Lily sobbed. "This feels wrong." "Lily, sweetheart, we've talked about this. Mom is sick. We're helping her. But what if she's not sick? What if... Do you want that Disneyland trip we talked about? The one with your friends this summer?" Lily wiped her tears. "Yes." "Then you need to trust Daddy. Mom left us. She's not coming back. She chose to abandon her family. She abandoned us." "That's right, Princess, but don't worry. We're better off without her." Lily didn't look convinced. She looked terrified. My 13-year-old daughter, scared of the man she should have been able to trust most in the world. I watched that footage 3 times in Owen's office, tears streaming down my face. "She's being manipulated," Owen said quietly. "This actually helps your case. Shows Julian's grooming, the bribes, the lies he's telling her." "She's scared of him," I whispered. "Yes, and that means she can be saved." The relief mixed with rage was overwhelming. My daughter wasn't lost, she was trapped. Between April 3rd and 5th, Marcus traced Hayes deeper. Paul Hayes, professional document forger based in Seattle. 2 felony convictions, currently out on probation. I cross-referenced him with FBI databases. Marcus said on our video call. "Clara Hayes is a bureau informant. The FBI's been using him in a RICO case against an organized crime syndicate." "What does that mean?" Owen answered. "It means every document Hayes forges for Julian, every communication they have, it's potentially going straight to federal investigators. This is bigger than we thought." "How much bigger?" "We'll find out." On April 6th, Owen brought in Lisa Bradford, a forensic accountant his firm used for complex fraud cases. 50s, sharp eyes behind frameless glasses. She spread financial documents across the conference table like a general planning a campaign. $43,000, Lisa said without preamble, stolen via 5 credit cards opened in Clara's name over the past 6 months. She showed me the statements: Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom, designer boutiques, all Eleanor's purchases using cards I'd never seen. "How did she..." "Forged applications with your signature and social security number, all delivered to a P.O. box she rented." Lisa's finger tracked down the timeline. September, October, November, January, February, March. Systematically building debt in your name while living off your generosity. "Can we prove it's Eleanor?" "Store security footage shows her using the cards. We have her on camera at 6 different locations." Lisa pulled out stills. Eleanor smiling, swiping a card with my name on it. Every piece of evidence built on the last. The surveillance footage, the financial fraud, the FBI connection, the manipulation of Lily. It was no longer a conspiracy. It was a documented criminal enterprise. On April 8th, Marcus came to my hotel room in person. He carried a thick file labeled in block letters, medical. December 2024. "I got the hospital records from your bathtub incident," he said quietly. "Clara, sit down." I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands already shaking. "What did you find?" He opened the file. Pages of medical documentation, ER reports, blood work, toxicology screens, and 1 page marked with a yellow tab. 30 milligrams of Ambien in your system, but that's not what caught my attention. He pointed to another line. Subcutaneous bruising on both shoulders. Consistent with sustained pressure from above. The room went cold. "What does that mean?" Marcus met my eyes. "It means someone held you underwater, Clara. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't suicide attempt. This was attempted murder." My world tilted again. The morning after Marcus showed me the bruising evidence, I sat in Owen's office with financial documents I'd kept hidden for 7 years. "There's something you need to know," I said quietly, "about my actual financial situation." Owen looked up from his legal pad, curious. Marcus, joining us via video call from his car, leaned closer to his camera. I spread the documents across the conference table: bank statements, investment portfolios, trust documentation, all of it showing accounts Julian had never known existed. My parents died in a car accident in June of 2018. I began. I was 28. They left me their estate, $800,000 in assets plus the family home in Lake Oswego. Then there was the insurance settlement from the drunk driver who killed them. $500,000 more. $1.3 million total. Owen said, making notes. I couldn't stay in that house. Too many memories. I sold it within a month, added that to the inheritance, and started investing. I pulled out a portfolio summary. Portland real estate was exploding in 2018 and 2019. I bought 3 rental properties in Southeast Portland before the market peaked. Small multifamily buildings that cash flowed immediately. And I put money into tech stocks, Apple, Microsoft, the companies I was designing buildings for. I watched them climb. Marcus nodded slowly on screen. Smart diversification, real estate and equities. By 2020, those investments had grown significantly. The rental properties had appreciated 40%. The tech stocks had doubled. My architecture firm was also taking off. I'd just landed the Morrison Tower contract and the Pearl District renovation. I paused, gathering my thoughts. That's when I established the trust. I slid the trust documents toward Owen. For Lily's future. Education security, whatever she might need. I wanted her protected no matter what happened to me. Owen picked up the statement. His eyes widened. $15,247,893.17. Funded in 2020 when Lily was 8 years old. It's an irrevocable trust. Lily is the sole beneficiary. I'm the grantor. The trustee is Wilmington Trust Company in Delaware, a professional firm that manages high net worth trusts. I met Owen's eyes. I never told Julian about any of it. Why not? Marcus asked through the screen. Because I wanted to know he loved me, not for money. I leaned back in my chair. My parents were wealthy, not billionaires, but comfortable. They always warned me people change when they know you have money. They treat you differently. They want things from you. So when I met Julian, I kept my inheritance separate. Used a different financial advisor he never met. Offshore accounts he never saw statements for. Legal structures he would never accidentally discover. I pulled out another set of statements. These are my current liquid assets outside the trust. $3.7 million managed through accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. Completely legal, fully reported to the IRS, but invisible to anyone who doesn't know to look for them. The office went silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Julian doesn't know about any of this, Owen asked carefully. He saw a reference to Lily's trust last week when Marcus's cameras caught him searching my office computer. But he doesn't know the amount, the structure, or that he has zero access to it. I tapped the trust documents. This is irrevocable. Lily is the sole beneficiary. Even if Julian somehow got conservatorship over me, he couldn't touch this money. Legally, it's not mine anymore. It's Lily's, held in trust until she's 25. And the $3.7 million liquid assets, completely separate from any marital assets. Inherited before marriage, kept in separate accounts, never commingled with joint funds. Under Oregon law, that's my separate property. Julian has no legal claim to it whatsoever. Marcus whistled low through the laptop speakers. So when Julian's been planning for months to steal what he thinks is your company worth $8 million and maybe some savings, he has no idea about $18.7 million in additional assets. I finished. The trust plus my liquid holdings. Money he's never seen. Money he'll never touch. Owen stared at the trust statement, then at me. Mrs. Caldwell, your husband, has been orchestrating this conspiracy based on the assumption that your total wealth is roughly $9 million, your firm's value, and whatever personal savings he knew about. But you actually have more than double that, and he doesn't even know it exists. Exactly. Why tell us now? Because I want you to understand something. I gathered the documents, my hands steady, for the first time in weeks. Julian tried to kill me in December. He's been systematically poisoning me for months. He forged my signature on the biggest contract of my career. He's manipulated our daughter and committed fraud in my name. I looked between Owen and Marcus's face on the screen. But I'm not some helpless victim he can destroy. I have resources. I have money. I have the ability to fight back with everything I've got. Owen leaned back, a slight smile crossing his face. This changes the dynamic entirely. Julian's entire plan is predicated on controlling your assets, your company, your property, your finances. He thinks if he gets conservatorship, he wins everything, pays off his debts, starts fresh with Eleanor. Owen tapped the trust documents. But the most valuable asset you have is completely beyond his reach. And when we reveal that in court, when we show the jury that his entire conspiracy was based on incomplete information, it proves he never really knew me at all. I finished. He married someone he thought was successful but manageable, someone dependent on him. He has no idea who I actually am. Marcus spoke from the screen, his voice thoughtful. Clara, this also explains something I've been wondering about. You left that house on March 17th with barely any planning, but you've been able to afford a 4-season suite for over a week without blinking. I thought maybe you'd maxed out credit cards hoping to figure it out later. I transferred $50,000 from my Cayman account to a U.S. account Julian doesn't know about the day after I left. That's covering my current expenses, hotel legal fees, living costs. I allowed myself a small smile. I could stay at that hotel for a year if I needed to. Longer, actually. You won't need to, Owen said firmly, but this is powerful leverage. Julian thinks you're desperate. Thinks you'll have to negotiate compromise, maybe even come back, because you can't afford to fight a prolonged legal battle. He's wrong. He's catastrophically wrong. Owen began organizing the documents into his case file. We need to protect these accounts immediately. Make sure there's no way he can trace them or file claims. Marcus, can you help secure everything? Already on it, Marcus said. I'll coordinate with her offshore advisors, add additional security protocols to every account. If Julian or Eleanor try to dig deeper, they'll hit legal walls they can't climb. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt something shift deep inside me. Not hope, exactly. Something stronger and more dangerous. Power. Julian had tried to destroy me because he thought I was vulnerable. Thought I needed him. Thought my company and our house and whatever savings he knew about were my entire world. He'd been planning this elaborate conspiracy based on a complete misunderstanding of who I was and what I had, and that fundamental mistake was going to cost him everything. 2 days after revealing my hidden wealth, Marcus arrived at Owen's office carrying a sealed evidence bag and a grim expression I'd come to recognize. Inside the bag, 3 vitamin bottles from my bathroom cabinet, the ones Julian had filled so carefully every Sunday night. I had these tested, Marcus said, placing them on the conference table. The lab results came back this morning. Owen and I leaned forward. Marcus opened his laptop and pulled up a toxicology report. These aren't vitamins, Clara. They're not even close. He highlighted 3 lines on the report. Lorazepam 2 milligrams per capsule. That's an anti-anxiety medication brand name, Ativan. Zolpidem 5 milligrams. You'd know it as Ambien, a powerful sleep aid. And risperidone 1 milligram. That's an antipsychotic medication. The room tilted. In my vitamins? Mixed into the capsules. Someone opened them, removed the actual vitamin powder, and replaced it with a precise cocktail of these 3 drugs. Marcus pulled up another document. I also got your pharmacy records. You've never been prescribed any of these medications. But Julian has, Owen said quietly, reading over Marcus's shoulder. Correct. Julian has an active prescription for Zolpidem. He's had it for years. And I found evidence he forged a prescription for lorazepam last September using a doctor he'd seen once for a sports injury. The risperidone is harder to trace, but my guess is he bought it illegally. It's not a commonly abused drug, so it's easier to acquire on black markets. What would these drugs do? I asked, though part of me already knew. I'd lived the answer for 3 months. Individually, each drug has specific effects. Together, Marcus shook his head. They create the perfect storm for cognitive impairment, memory loss, confusion, disorientation, an inability to focus or make decisions. That's what I was experiencing, I whispered. Every symptom. Yes, and it would only get worse. I had the lab analyze not just the current capsules, but samples from bottles you'd thrown away in your bathroom trash. The oldest ones from early January had lower concentrations. Julian was increasing the dosage gradually, about 10% every week. Owen pulled up a calculator. If he started in January and increased weekly, that's roughly 16 weeks of escalation, which means the current dosage is approximately 3 times what he started with. Marcus confirmed. And if Clara had continued taking them, I need you to meet someone. Owen interrupted, pulling out his phone. Dr. Raymond Bradford. He's a toxicologist I've worked with on previous cases. He reviewed the lab results this morning. He's waiting downstairs. 10 minutes later, Dr. Bradford sat across from me. Mid-60s, silver beard, the kind of calm authority that comes from decades of expert testimony. He opened a tablet and pulled up images that would haunt me for months. Mrs. Caldwell, I want to show you something. He turned the tablet toward me. This is a simulated brain scan of a healthy 35-year-old woman. The image showed vibrant colors, clear structures, everything looking organized and whole. This simulation is based on published medical research about long-term use of benzodiazepines combined with antipsychotics. He swiped to the next image. This is what your brain would look like after another 2 to 3 months on the cocktail your husband was giving you. The second image was devastatingly different. Gray areas where there should have been color, visible deterioration in the hippocampus, the memory center, thinning of the cortex. The damage you see here would be permanent, Dr. Bradford said quietly. Irreversible cognitive decline. You would require assisted living care, Mrs. Caldwell. You would forget your daughter's name. Basic tasks like dressing yourself, managing finances, even recognizing familiar faces, all of that would become impossible. My throat closed. How long did I take these? According to Marcus's timeline, approximately 10 weeks, early January through mid-March. And if I'd continued, another 8 to 12 weeks of escalating doses would likely have pushed you past the point of recovery. You stopped just in time. He closed the tablet. Your husband wasn't just stealing your money, Mrs. Caldwell. He was systematically erasing your mind. The office was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. This was intentional, Owen said. It wasn't a question. Absolutely, Dr. Bradford replied. The specific combination of drugs, the gradual dosage, increased the timing. This was calculated to produce symptoms that would appear to be early-onset dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Perfect justification for a conservatorship filing. And the permanent damage, I asked, would have made you genuinely incompetent, unable to challenge the conservatorship or testify against him. He would have had complete control over you and your assets for the rest of your life. Doctor, Bradford's expression hardened. This is one of the most insidious cases of intentional poisoning I've encountered in 30 years of forensic toxicology. Marcus pulled up a chart showing the dosage escalation. Week by week, the lines climbed steadily. He kept records, Clara. We found a spreadsheet on that iPad, the one with the Operation Freedom folder. He documented every dosage increase, tracked your symptoms adjusted based on how you responded. He experimented on me, I said numbly. Yes. Owen made notes, his jaw tight. This evidence is admissible in court. Dr. Bradford can testify. The pharmacy records prove Julian had access to these drugs. The spreadsheet proves premeditation. Combined with everything else, this is attempted murder. Marcus finished. Slow, calculated, and nearly successful. I looked at the brain scan images again. That could have been me. Should have been me if I hadn't read Dr. Sterling's note. If I hadn't escaped when I did. How did I get so lucky? I whispered. You weren't lucky, Owen said. You were smart. You listened to your instincts. You trusted Dr. Sterling. You got out. 2 more months, I said. I was 2 months away from permanent brain damage. But you're not damaged, Dr. Bradford assured me. I'd recommend a full neurological workup to be certain, but based on your current cognitive function, the fact that you're sitting here processing complex information, making strategic decisions, I see no indication of lasting harm. The brain is remarkably resilient when the poisoning stops. Small comfort. Julian had planned to destroy my mind as casually as someone might plan a vacation. He'd tracked my deterioration in a spreadsheet. increased the dosage when I started adapting, fine-tuned his attack based on my suffering. We need to add this to the criminal complaint, Owen said. Attempted murder through systematic poisoning. Dr. Bradford, I'll need your full report and your availability to testify. You'll have both. That night, alone in my hotel room, I couldn't stop thinking about the brain scans, the before and after, how close I'd come to losing myself completely. Julian hadn't just wanted my money. He'd wanted to make sure I could never fight back, never recover, never even understand what he'd done to me. He'd wanted to erase me while keeping me alive, and he'd almost succeeded. On April 13th, Marcus spread hospital records across Owen's conference table. December 14th, 2024, the night I almost died. Let's talk about what really happened in that bathtub, he said quietly. I've been avoiding this. 3 months later, I still had nightmares. The sensation of water, the feeling of floating. Waking up coughing and confused Julian's worried face hovering over me while EMTs worked. The hospital found 30 milligrams of zolpidem in your blood. Marcus began. That's 3 high-dose pills. You don't have a prescription for Ambien, but Julian does. Owen pulled up pharmacy records. His prescription bottle from that week was missing 9 pills. 9. He took multiple attempts to dissolve them in liquid, Marcus explained. Wine specifically. Red wine masks the bitter taste better than white. We found your wine glass from that night. Police kept it as evidence when they initially investigated. Ambien residue confirmed. I remembered that glass. Julian bringing it to me smiling. You've been so stressed lately, babe. Relax. Timeline reconstruction. Marcus continued. You started your bath at 6:45. Julian brought you wine at 7. By 7:22, you were unconscious, we know, because that's when your phone stopped showing activity. You'd been texting with a client. Lily found me at 7:37, I whispered. She told me she came home early from her sleepover. Her friend got sick. The friend's mother drove Lily home around 7:30 instead of 9 o'clock as planned. Marcus pulled up another document. Lily was supposed to be gone until 9. That gave Julian a 2-hour window. Instead, she walked in after 35 minutes. 35 minutes! That's how close I'd come to death. 90 minutes of pure chance. Lily performed CPR, Owen said, reading the paramedic report. She'd learned it in her school health class that semester, and the 911 dispatcher walked her through the steps while emergency services were on the way. She saved your life, Clara. My daughter. 13 years old, finding her mother unconscious in a bathtub, bringing me back from the edge while her father... Where was Julian? I asked. His phone GPS shows he was at a bar 6 blocks away. He'd made sure to establish an alibi. He didn't get home until 7:13 minutes after Lily called 911. Claimed he'd gone out for a drink because you wanted alone time. Marcus opened another file. Julian's Google search history from the week before December 14th. He turned the laptop toward me. How long does unconscious person drown in bathtub? Does autopsy detect Ambien? Insurance payout for accidental bathtub drowning? Spouse life insurance, accidental death? The searches went on. Question after question. Research. Planning. He was meticulous, Owen said. This wasn't impulse, this was calculated murder. Eleanor knew, Marcus added, pulling up text messages. December 13th, the night before. Eleanor to Julian. Tomorrow night is Clara's bath night. Julian's response, I know, it's time. My hands went numb. My sister, my husband, coordinating my death over text message. The hospital report also documented something the ER doctor noted but didn't flag as suspicious, Marcus said gently. Subcutaneous bruising on both your shoulders, consistent with sustained downward pressure. I stared at him. What does that mean? It means after the Ambien knocked you unconscious, someone held you underwater. The bruising indicates pressure from above, hands on your shoulders pushing down. You weren't just drowning because you passed out. You were being drowned. The conference room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. The ER doctor noted it. Owen said, but in context of a near-drowning bruising isn't unusual. Emergency responders might have caused it during rescue attempts. It wasn't investigated further because you survived, and Julian's story about you accidentally taking Ambien seemed plausible. But it wasn't an accident. I said numbly. No, it was attempted murder. First degree premeditated with your sister as an accessory. I remembered that night now with horrible clarity. The warmth of the bath, Julian kissing my forehead before he left, his whisper, "Enjoy your bath, sweetheart. You deserve to relax." Those were supposed to be the last words I heard from him. Tender, loving. A perfect final memory while he waited at a bar for me to drown. If Lily hadn't come home 90 minutes early, if her friend's mother hadn't decided to cancel the sleepover, I would have died. And Julian would have collected the life insurance, probably cried at my funeral, and moved on. "There's one more thing," Marcus said carefully. "The nurse's notes from the ER. She documented family reactions when you regained consciousness. Quote, daughter, relieved and crying. Husband appeared subdued. When informed patient would make full recovery, husband's expression was briefly disappointed before masking with appropriate relief. Disappointed, I repeated. The nurse noticed. She made a note. She didn't understand the significance, but she saw it. Julian had been disappointed that I survived. Not relieved, not grateful. Disappointed. After this failed, Owen said, he changed tactics, couldn't risk another suspicious near-death incident. So he started the slow poisoning instead. The vitamins, the systematic cognitive destruction, a different approach to the same goal. I looked at the evidence spread before me. The Google searches, the texts, the hospital records, the bruising photos, the timeline that put Lily's early arrival at exactly the moment that saved my life. My daughter had saved me through pure chance, and my husband had been planning my death with the same careful attention he'd once used to plan our anniversary trips. This is attempted murder, Owen said. The DA will add it to the charges. Combined with the poisoning evidence, the conspiracy to commit fraud, the forgery, Julian's looking at decades in prison. Eleanor, too. I couldn't speak, couldn't process. Could only see Julian's face in my memory kissing my forehead, whispering those tender words while planning to let me drown. Clara, Marcus's voice gentle. Are you okay? No, I whispered, but I'm alive. And that somehow was going to have to be enough. 2 days after learning about the drowning attempt, Marcus opened a folder on his laptop labeled Corporate Espionage. Julian wasn't just planning to kill you, he said. He was planning to steal your entire professional life. The folder came from Julian's iPad, the shared device we'd been monitoring since late March. Inside was a subfolder titled New Beginning. The name alone made my stomach turn. Marcus opened the first document, a detailed timeline spanning 6 months. Phase 1 through Phase 4, each phase color-coded with completion dates and responsible parties. This is a corporate takeover plan, Owen said, reading over my shoulder. Comprehensive, professional. He must have hired someone to help draft this. Phase 1, establish Clara's incompetence. September 2024 to January 2025. Phase 2, secure client relationships. January to March 2025. Phase 3, legal documentation. March to April 2025. Phase 4, launch new entity. April 30th, 2025. April 30th, I whispered. That's in 12 days. That's also the date in his conservatorship filing timeline. Owen noted. The day you were supposed to be involuntarily committed. Marcus pulled up the Phase 2 folder, email after email. Julian had contacted 15 of Caldwell Design Associates' largest clients directly. I read the messages, each one a knife to the gut. Dear Mr. Harrison, I'm reaching out regarding Clara Caldwell's health situation. As her husband and business partner, I wanted to inform you personally that Clara will be stepping back from active management due to medical issues. I'll be assuming operational control to ensure continuity of service. Business partner. I looked up. Julian's never worked at my firm. He's not even listed as an employee. He is now, Marcus said grimly, or he was trying to be. Look at these. Forged documents. My signature on partnership agreements dated back to 2020. Transfer of authority forms. Power of attorney paperwork giving Julian control over all business decisions. Every signature is fake, Owen said, pulling up a comparison sheet. See the C in Caldwell. Your real signature has a distinctive loop. These forgeries don't. A handwriting expert will testify these are fraudulent. But the most damning evidence was the city contract. The $50 million waterfront development project I'd won last month, my firm's biggest achievement in 12 years. Julian had attempted to transfer it. Marcus showed me the paperwork. A forged power of attorney submitted to the city contract office on March 20th, 3 days after I'd escaped. The document claimed I was medically incapacitated and transferring all contractual obligations to Julian Caldwell, acting as my legal representative. Did it work? I asked, dreading the answer. No. The city's legal department flagged it for review. They tried to contact you directly for confirmation. When they couldn't reach you, they put the transfer on hold pending investigation. Owen smiled slightly. Bureaucracy saved you. But if I'd been committed like Julian planned, then he would have had legal standing to act on your behalf. The conservatorship would have given him authority to sign contracts, transfer assets, make business decisions. The city would have approved the transfer. I stared at the forged power of attorney. My signature, but not my signature. My company, but not my company anymore. There's more, Marcus said. He pulled up a corporate registration document, filed with the Oregon Secretary of State on April 5th. Caldwell and Sterling Design, LLC Principals. Julian Caldwell, Eleanor Harper, Registered Agent. Eleanor Harper, Business Purpose, Architectural Design and Consulting Services. He's using my name, I said numbly. He's literally stealing my brand. And attempting to steal your clients, Owen added. We pulled the client list he filed with his business license application. It's your client list, Clara. Every single name. He was planning to contact them, all tell them you'd retired due to health issues, and offer seamless transition to his new firm. What about Eleanor? Marcus scrolled through documents. She's listed as interim CEO. Her signature is on the incorporation papers, the lease for office space, job postings for staff. She was going to run the day-to-day operations while Julian controlled everything behind the scenes. They were replacing me, I whispered, with themselves. And launching in 12 days. Owen confirmed. April 30th. The same day you were supposed to disappear into an institution, unable to fight back, unable to tell anyone what they'd done. I looked at the corporate logo Julian had designed. Caldwell and Sterling Design, modern, professional. It could have been my firm's logo. Maybe that was the point. Who is Sterling? I asked. No one, Marcus said. It's a fake partner name. Julian probably thought it sounded more established than Caldwell Architectural, or just using his name alone. Makes the firm seem larger, more credible. He's been working on this since September, I said, scrolling through the timeline. 6 months of planning. While he was drugging me, manipulating Lily, conspiring with Eleanor, he was also systematically destroying my company. We need to act fast, Owen said, already typing on his phone. I'm filing for an emergency injunction blocking the April 30th launch. We'll notify every client Julian contacted, inform them of the fraud, contact the city contract office with evidence of forgery, and add corporate fraud to the criminal charges. What about my employees? I asked. Caldwell Design Associates had 18 people, architects, designers, administrative staff, people who depended on the firm for their livelihoods. How many know about your absence? I don't know. I've been gone a month. Julian must have told them something. Marcus pulled up internal company emails. He told them you were on medical leave, extended stress-related absence. He's been forwarding company emails to himself, responding as if he had authority. Can we stop him? Yes, Owen said firmly. But we need to move now, today. I'm calling the city contract office, your corporate attorney, and the Oregon Secretary of State's office to report the fraudulent business registration. Marcus, can you contact Clara's employees directly? Already composing the email, Marcus said. I watched them work, these 2 men who'd become my lifeline. They were fighting for my company the way they'd fought to protect my life. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. 3 of your employees tried to contact you over the past month. Your lead architect, Sarah Mitchell, your office manager, David Cooper, and your senior designer, Jennifer Walsh. They all sent emails to your personal account, the one Julian doesn't have access to. They were worried. They didn't believe Julian's story about medical leave. He showed me the emails. Sarah. Clara, please call me. Something's wrong. Julian's making decisions that don't make sense. David. I need to talk to you about the company finances. Julian's moving money in ways that concern me. Jennifer. Are you okay? Julian said you won't be back, but that doesn't sound like you. Please respond. They knew, I whispered. They knew something was wrong. Loyal employees, Owen said. They'll be important witnesses, and they'll be relieved to know you're fighting back. I looked at the new beginning folder. Julian's new beginning. Built on my work, my reputation, my relationships, he'd planned to erase me from my own life and step into the space I'd left behind. But he'd made one critical error. I was still here, and I was coming for everything he'd tried to steal. At 9:30 on the morning of April 19th, I walked into the conference room at Caldwell Design Associates for the first time in 5 weeks. The board of directors sat around the table, 5 faces I'd worked with for years. Trusted advisors who'd helped build the firm from a 2-person operation to an $8 million company. They stared at me like I'd returned from the dead. Clara David Sullivan, my board chair, stood slowly. We were told you were on extended medical leave, and I finished. That's what Julian told you. It's a lie. Everything he's told you is a lie. Owen stepped in behind me, Marcus following with a laptop and a thick folder of documents. I'd spent the past 12 hours preparing for this moment. No sleep, just coffee evidence and rage refined into strategy. I've called this emergency meeting under Article 7 of our corporate bylaws, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. I'm presenting evidence of fraud, corporate espionage, and attempted theft by Julian Caldwell and Eleanor Harper. Silence. Then board member Jennifer Lewis spoke. Eleanor Harper, your sister. She's been running operations for the past 3 weeks. She told us you'd asked her to step in during your recovery. I never asked her to do anything. She and Julian have been conspiring to steal this company for 6 months. I nodded to Marcus, who pulled up the first slide. The new beginning folder, Phase 1 through Phase 4, every email Julian had sent to clients, every forged document bearing my signature. I watched their faces change as Marcus walked them through the evidence. Shock, horror, anger. He contacted our clients. David's voice shook. Told them you were stepping down. 15 of them. And he filed incorporation papers for a new firm, Caldwell and Sterling Design, set to launch April 30th. I pulled out the registration documents, using my client list. My reputation, my name. Where's Eleanor now? Jennifer asked. Downstairs in her office, Owen said. She doesn't know this meeting is happening. I stood. I'm calling for an immediate vote. First, to terminate Eleanor Harper's employment for cause effective immediately. Second, to authorize legal action against Julian Caldwell for fraud and corporate theft. Third, to implement emergency protective measures to secure company assets. I move to vote, David said immediately. Second, Jennifer added. The vote was unanimous. 5 hands raised without hesitation. Owen, would you? I gestured toward the door. He stepped out. 2 minutes later, he returned with Eleanor. My sister walked into the conference room expecting a normal operations meeting. Instead, she found me sitting at the head of the table with 5 board members whose expressions ranged from disgusted to furious. Clara, her voice was careful, you're back. I never left Eleanor. I escaped. Her face went pale. The board has voted to terminate your employment effective immediately for attempted corporate fraud and conspiracy. Owen handed her a document. Security will escort you from the building. You have 15 minutes to collect personal items. All company property, including your laptop and phone, will be retained as evidence. You can't. We already did, David said coldly. You lied to us. You participated in fraud. You're done. I watched my sister walk out flanked by security and felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, just cold satisfaction. The board meeting continued for another hour. Owen explained the next steps while I sat in the CEO chair I'd built over 12 years and felt the weight of nearly losing it settle into my bones. We need to protect the company permanently, Owen said. Clara, I'm recommending you transfer ownership into an irrevocable trust structure. It'll prevent Julian from ever making claims, even if he'd succeeded with conservatorship. How would it work? You'd establish an employee stock ownership plan, an ESOP, giving your 18 employees a 30% equity stake. The remaining 70% goes into an irrevocable trust for Lily managed by a corporate trustee. You'd continue as CEO with full operational control, but the ownership would be protected. Julian couldn't touch it. Not even if he'd gotten conservatorship over you. The assets would be owned by the trust and the employees, completely beyond his reach. I looked at the 5 board members who'd supported me without hesitation. What do you think? I think it's brilliant, David said, and generous to the staff. They've been loyal through this nightmare. By noon, the papers were drawn up. By 3 o'clock, the trust was established and funded. Caldwell Design Associates was no longer mine in legal ownership, but it was safer than it had ever been. Marcus spent the afternoon personally calling each of the 15 clients Julian had contacted. I wanted to hear it from you, one of them told me when he called back. Julian's story never made sense. You'd never abandon a project midstream. The city contract office meeting happened at 4. Owen presented evidence of the forged power of attorney. The deputy director's face darkened as he reviewed the documents. We'll be referring this to the district attorney for potential prosecution, he said. Government contract fraud is a federal offense. The contract itself, I asked, remains with Caldwell Design Associates as originally executed. We're adding additional verification protocols, but the project is yours, Ms. Caldwell. That evening, Marcus showed me the surveillance footage from my house. 7:43 p.m., Julian sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open. His phone buzzed. He read something, probably the termination notice Owen had sent copied to all 15 clients in the city contract office. His face went white, then red. He stood so fast the chair toppled backward, grabbed the laptop with both hands and threw it across the kitchen. It shattered against the wall. He screamed actual screaming words I couldn't make out but didn't need to. Rage and defeat and the realization that his 6-month plan had collapsed in a single day. I watched the footage twice. The second time I smiled. On April 23rd, 3 days after I'd reclaimed my company, Owen received a phone call that changed everything again. FBI, he said, hanging up and looking at me across his office desk. Special Agent Jennifer Torres wants to meet tomorrow morning. She says it's about Julian and Paul Hayes. Hayes, the forger Eleanor had called. The man who'd been making fake documents for Julian's conspiracy. The next morning, we drove to the federal building in downtown Portland. Agent Torres met us in a secure conference room on the 8th floor. Mid-40s dark hair, pulled back sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a Navy suit and FBI credentials on a lanyard. Thank you for coming, she said, shaking hands with Owen, Marcus, and me. I've been following your case with interest. Julian Caldwell has become relevant to a federal investigation we've been running for 8 months. The RICO case Marcus mentioned, Owen said. Correct. We've been investigating an organized fraud ring targeting vulnerable adults across 5 states. 37 victims, $47 million stolen over 3 years. Conservatorship, fraud, financial exploitation, forged medical documents. She pulled up a presentation on the monitor. Paul Hayes was caught last August for his role as the ring's document forger. He flipped immediately. He's been wearing a wire for the FBI ever since. My stomach dropped. For 8 months. Yes, which means when your husband contacted Hayes in early March requesting services, Hayes reported it to his handler immediately. We authorized him to proceed with the transaction while wearing surveillance equipment. She clicked to the next slide, a photograph of Julian taken from a distance. He was walking into a warehouse-style building in southeast Portland. March 16th, 2:15 p.m. Your husband met Hayes at this location. Another click. Interior surveillance footage. Julian sitting across a table from a man I'd never seen Hayes, presumably. We have full audio and video of their conversation. Agent Torres played a clip. Julian's voice clear and unmistakable. I need a psychiatric evaluation, something convincing. Severe cognitive decline, memory loss, inability to manage her own affairs. Can you do that? Hayes' voice rougher. Who's the patient? My wife, Clara Caldwell. And who's the evaluating physician? I don't care. Make someone up. Make it look legitimate. I'll pay $50,000 cash. The recording continued. Details about the fake doctor's credentials, timeline for delivery, Julian's calm, businesslike tone as he discussed destroying his wife's legal standing. I felt sick. March 23rd. Agent Torres continued pulling up more footage. Hayes delivered the forged psychiatric evaluation. Julian paid cash. The video showed Julian counting out stacks of bills. $50,000 in hundreds. Hayes accepting the money. The exchange took less than 3 minutes. "Where did he get 50,000 cash?" I whispered. Marcus answered. "From your accounts, Clara. Remember the 430,000 he stole over 8 months? This was part of it. He used your money to pay for documents that would declare you mentally incompetent." The room spun slightly. Julian had stolen from me to fund my own destruction. Agent Torres placed a document on the table. Letterhead reading Portland Center for Psychiatric Evaluation. Dr. Richard Morrison, MD Psychiatry. Evaluation date March 24th, 2025. Patient Clara Ann Caldwell. Diagnosis early onset dementia with severe memory impairment, judgment dysfunction, and inability to manage personal or financial affairs. Recommendation full conservatorship warranted. Every word was a lie. Dr. Richard Morrison didn't exist. I'd never been evaluated, but it looked completely legitimate. This was going to be filed with his conservatorship petition, Agent Torres said. Combined with whatever testimony he'd coerced from other sources, it might have been enough to convince a judge. "Julian's connected to organized crime now," Owen said. It wasn't a question. Technically, he's not a member of the organization, but he paid them $50,000 for services, knowing they were providing fraudulent documents. That makes him party to the conspiracy. Torres pulled up more slides. "We also have evidence of money laundering using stolen funds to pay for illegal services, wire fraud, and if we charge him federally under RICO statutes, we're looking at 10 to 20 years minimum." "What are you recommending?" Owen asked. "That's why I'm here." Torres leaned forward. "My priority is taking down the fraud ring. We've identified 17 members, and we're moving to arrest in 2 weeks. Julian's a bonus target. Clear evidence, clear crime, but ultimately small scale compared to the larger operation. So I'm offering you a choice. We can charge Julian federally serious charges, harsh sentences, but slower process. Or we can provide all our evidence to the district attorney's office for state prosecution. Faster trial, local jurisdiction, but you get federal quality evidence and Hayes' testimony." Owen didn't hesitate. "State prosecution with federal evidence support. Clara deserves a trial that happens quickly in her community where people can see justice served." "That's what I'd choose too," Torres said. She pushed a flash drive across the table. "Everything's on here. Audio recordings, video surveillance, the forged document, financial tracking showing the 50,000 came from Clara's accounts. Hayes will testify he's a cooperating witness with full immunity. And I'll be available to testify about the RICO investigation and how Julian connected to it." I stared at the flash drive. 8 months of FBI surveillance. Professional federal evidence. Julian caught on tape and video paying cash to fake documents that would have ended my life. "He's finished," Marcus said quietly. "He was finished when he tried to kill you," Owen corrected. "This just makes it federal level finished." Agent Torres stood. "The district attorney will receive a full brief from our office tomorrow. I understand you're working toward criminal charges. This should accelerate that significantly." She shook my hand again. "Miss Caldwell, I've worked vulnerable adult cases for 15 years. What your husband did, the planning, the cruelty, the systematic destruction, it's one of the worst I've seen. I'm glad you got out. And I'm glad we can help make sure he never does this to anyone else." After she left, I sat in that federal conference room holding the flash drive and trying to process what I'd just learned. Julian hadn't just been stealing from me and trying to kill me. He'd been working with organized criminals, using my money to pay them, creating fake medical records, all while sleeping next to me at night. "Federal evidence," Owen said, smiling. "Clara, with this, the state's case is bulletproof. Torres just handed us everything we need." I looked at the flash drive in my hand. 8 months of wire recordings, video of Julian counting stolen cash, a fake psychiatric evaluation with my name on it. "When do we give this to the DA?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning," Owen said, and then we start talking about trial dates. 3 days after the FBI meeting, Marcus called an emergency session at Owen's office. His voice on the phone had been tight, careful. I found something else what was all he'd said. Now he sat across from me with his laptop open, and I could see he'd barely slept. "I've been doing a deeper forensic dive on Julian's devices," he began. "Email accounts, cloud storage, everything. This morning, I found an insurance policy confirmation in his Gmail from August 15th, 2024. He turned the laptop toward me. "Pacific Northwest Life Insurance Company, policy number 847-NK-9204, insured Clara Ann Caldwell, beneficiary Julian Caldwell, coverage amount $5 million. "I never signed up for life insurance," I said. "I know." Marcus pulled up another document. "Look at the signature on the application." My signature. But not my signature. Close but the C in Caldwell had that same missing loop I'd seen on the forged business documents. "He forged this too," Owen said quietly. "It gets worse." Marcus clicked to another file. "The policy has a double indemnity clause. If you die from accidental causes, car accident, drowning, fall, overdose, classified as accidental, the payout doubles to $10 million. The office felt airless. $10 million, I repeated. Plus your company $8 million, plus your liquid assets $3.7 million, plus whatever he thought he could access from Lily's trust. Marcus looked grim. If Julian had succeeded with conservatorship and then staged your death to look accidental, he'd have walked away with close to $25 million, enough to pay off his debts and disappear. "The bathtub," I whispered. "In December, that would have been accidental death." "Exactly. Drowning in your own bathtub while under the influence of Ambien. Tragic accident. $10 million. Owen's jaw was tight. When that failed, he switched to the slow poisoning. But poisoning wouldn't trigger double indemnity. It's clearly intentional harm if discovered. He needed something that looked like an accident. Marcus opened another file. "That's what this is about." The document was titled claratimeline.docs, created August 20th, 2024, last modified March 15th, 2025, 2 days before I'd escaped. I read the contents, my hands shaking. Phase 1. Establish pattern. September to December 2024. Systematic cognitive impairment via medication. Create documented medical history of confusion, memory loss, erratic behavior. Phase 2. Legal framework. January to April 2025. Secure forged medical evaluations. File conservatorship. Eleanor assumes interim control of assets during proceedings. Phase 3. Institutional placement. May to October 2025. Following conservatorship approval, voluntary commitment to private psychiatric facility. Establish pattern of severe depression and suicidal ideation. Staff documentation critical. Phase 4. Final resolution, November 2025. After minimum 6-month institutional stay, establishes suicide risk pattern arrange incident. Accidental overdose. Most viable psychiatric patients have access to medications. Mixing error plausible. Facility liability minimizes investigation. Insurance payout processes within 60 days. I couldn't breathe. The document outlined my murder with the same clinical precision Julian had once used, planning our vacation itineraries. Phase 4. Marcus said softly. That's where this was always going. Not just stealing from you. Not just institutionalizing you. He was planning to kill you and make it look like a psychiatric patient's tragic accident. Owen pulled up another image. Julian's calendar synced from his iCloud account. I could see his appointments, reminders, personal notes. November 15th, 2025. In red, text C final. Below it, in the notes section, call Hayes. Need final documents by November 10th. E handles arrangements. C final. I whispered. He scheduled my death like a meeting. Hayes would have provided whatever forged documents Julian needed, maybe falsified psychiatric medication records to explain the accidental overdose. Marcus's voice was hard. And E. Eleanor was assigned to handle arrangements, whatever that meant. I stared at the calendar entry. 6.5 months from now, November 15th, if I hadn't read Dr. Sterling's note, if I hadn't escaped, if Marcus and Owen hadn't helped me fight back, I would be dead by November 15th. He took out the insurance policy in August. Owen said, working through the timeline. Started the drugging in September. Tried to drown you in December, probably because he was impatient, wanted the money faster. When that failed, he went back to the long-term plan. Slow poisoning, conservatorship, institutionalization, then staged suicide disguised as accidental death. The insurance company, I said. They'll investigate if I die under suspicious circumstances. They will. But if you've been institutionalized for 6 months with documented psychiatric issues, prescribed multiple medications, and you die from what appears to be accidentally taking the wrong dose or mixing medications incorrectly, Owen shook his head. The facility would be liable, not Julian. The insurance company would see a tragic but not suspicious death. They'd pay out. $10 million, Marcus repeated. Double indemnity for accidental death. I looked at the calendar again. November 15th, 2025. C. Final. E. handles arrangements. My sister. Planning the logistics of my death. While Julian collected $10 million. We need to notify the insurance company immediately, Owen said. The policy's fraudulent forged application forged signature. They'll void it and likely press charges themselves. Insurance fraud is serious, and they don't take kindly to murder-for-profit schemes. What about Eleanor? I asked. He handles arrangements. She was supposed to arrange my death. It's evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. First degree premeditated. The calendar entry, the timeline document, her role specified. She's as guilty as Julian in the planning. She just didn't get the chance to execute. Marcus closed his laptop. Clara, I've been investigating fraud and financial crimes for 20 years. I've seen people killed for a few $1,000s. I've seen families destroyed over inheritances. But this... He gestured at the closed laptop containing the timeline document and calendar. This is one of the most calculated murder plots I've ever uncovered. He planned your death for months, documented every step, scheduled it on his calendar, assigned your sister to handle the details. Like a project plan, I said numbly. Phase 1 through Phase 4, timeline, milestones, deliverables. Exactly like that. Owen's expression was grim. And that's what we'll show a jury. Not a crime of passion, not a sudden impulse. A planned, methodical, documented conspiracy to murder you for money. Sulls. I looked at the documents spread across Owen's desk. The insurance policy with my forged signature. The timeline document outlining phases of my destruction. The calendar with my death scheduled 6 months in advance. November 15th, 2025, C. Final. I was supposed to be dead. 6 months of institutionalization followed by a carefully staged accident. Eleanor arranging the details. Julian collecting $10 million. They'd planned it all. Every step, every contingency. Except they'd never planned for me to escape. On April 30th, the day Julian's fake company was supposed to launch, I sat in Owen's conference room with a very different kind of planning meeting. Agent Torres Marcus Owen, a detective from Portland PD named Sarah Morrison, and a CPS caseworker named Amanda Wright. Between us, evidence files, venue, layouts, and a plan to end this once and for all. We could arrest him quietly, Detective Morrison said. Execute the warrant at his house. Standard procedure. No. My voice was calm, certain. I want it public. Everyone looked at me. Julian built his entire scheme on making me disappear quietly, drugging me in private, forging documents in secret, planning my death behind closed doors. I leaned forward. I want his arrest to be the opposite of that, public, witnessed, impossible to deny. Owen smiled slightly. What did you have in mind? The Waterfront Project Celebration Gala, May 15th. I pulled up the invitation on my tablet. Caldwell Design Associates was hosting a formal event to celebrate winning the $50 million city contract. 300 guests, client city officials, press employees. Julian will be there. He doesn't know the company's been protected. He still thinks he has a chance to salvage something. He's been monitored, Marcus confirmed. Still living in the house, still accessing Clara's old email accounts. He thinks she's hiding, building a case quietly. He doesn't realize how much we have. Agent Torres nodded slowly. A public arrest sends a message to other potential predators, to victims who might be too afraid to come forward. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about visibility. There's something else, she continued. Hayes contacted me yesterday. Julian reached out to him. Wants one final delivery forged transfer documents for a psychiatric facility. He's still trying to execute the conservatorship plan, even though Clara blocked the company takeover, Detective Morrison asked. He's desperate. Thinks if he can get her committed, he can still access the assets somehow. He doesn't understand that the trust structure makes it impossible. Torres looked at me. I can authorize Hayes to make the delivery. Let Julian complete the crime while we're recording. It'll be the final nail. A sting, I said. Exactly. Hayes delivers the documents. Julian accepts them, pays for them, we'll have it all on audio and video. Then May 15th, we arrest him in front of everyone who matters to him professionally. What about Eleanor? I asked. Separate warrant. We'll arrest her simultaneously at her apartment. Less dramatic, but equally effective. Owen pulled up the gala seating chart. Security will be positioned here, here, and here. Media will be covering the event. We'll coordinate with them to ensure cameras are ready. Clara will arrive at 7:45, make her entrance. At 8 o'clock, Detective Morrison and her team will execute the warrant. What about Lily? I asked quietly. Amanda Wright, the CPS caseworker, spoke for the first time. Mid-30s, kind eyes, calm demeanor. We'll extract her the day before, May 14th. I'll personally pick her up from school, explain that her mother is safe and wants to see her. We'll bring her to a neutral location where you can meet Clara. Then she'll stay with you under temporary CPS custody supervision until the court hearing. She won't see her father arrested? No, she'll be safe with you. I felt something unknot in my chest. Thank you. The meeting continued for 2 more hours, every detail planned. Security positions, press coordination, arrest timing, backup plans if Julian didn't show, though. Marcus assured us he would. He's arrogant, Marcus said. Thinks he's untouchable. We've been monitoring his communications. He's been telling his golf buddies the company drama will blow over, that Clara's overreacting. He genuinely believes he'll walk away from this. On May 7th, Hayes made the delivery. Marcus showed me the video that evening. Hayes' body camera captured everything. Julian in a parking garage in southeast Portland, taking the envelope, opening it, smiling at the forged documents. Perfect, Julian's voice on the recording. This is exactly what I needed. Once these are filed, the rest will fall into place. He counted out $10,000 in cash. Hayes took it. The transaction lasted 4 minutes. He thinks he's winning, I said, watching Julian walk away from the camera envelope tucked under his arm. He thinks wrong, Marcus replied. May 14th arrived. I watched from Owen's office window as Amanda Wright picked Lily up from middle school at 3:15. My daughter, who I hadn't seen in 2 months, who'd been manipulated into believing I'd abandoned her. Amanda had prepared her gently. Lily knew I was safe. Knew there were things about her father she didn't understand yet. Knew her mother loved her and wanted to protect her. At 4 o'clock, they brought her to Owen's office. She was taller than I remembered. 13, not 12 anymore. Dark hair longer, but same eyes. Same daughter. Mom. Her voice cracked. I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. She was stiff at first, confused. Then suddenly she was sobbing against my shoulder. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, I whispered. None of this was your fault. None of it. That evening we stayed in my hotel suite. I ordered room service. We talked for hours. I explained everything in terms a 13-year-old could process. Her father had made very bad choices. He'd hurt people. Tomorrow he would face consequences. She was safe now. I would keep her safe. She fell asleep in my bed, holding my hand like she used to when she was small. May 15th morning, I stood in front of the hotel mirror in a red dress I'd bought the day before. Power red. Victory red. The dress of a woman who'd survived and was about to reclaim everything that had been stolen. My hair was done, makeup subtle but polished. I looked healthy, strong. Nothing like the confused, drugged woman Julian had tried to create. Owen knocked at 7:30. Cars ready, security teams in position, Detective Morrison's coordinating with the venue. Torres is on site with the FBI team. And Julian, Marcus confirmed he's on his way, should arrive around 7:45. I looked at my reflection one last time. The woman staring back wasn't the woman who'd run from her house 2 months ago. She wasn't even the woman who discovered her husband's conspiracy. She was someone new, someone who'd been broken down and built herself back stronger. "Let's go," I said. Tonight, in front of 300 witnesses, I was going to watch my husband realize he'd lost everything. And I was going to smile. Before the gala confrontation that ends everything type 15 if you're ready, I need to know you're still here. Note this story blends fiction with educational purpose. Similarities to real names or settings are unintentional. If this isn't for you, feel free to pause. Otherwise, here's what happened. The ballroom at the Portland Sentinel Hotel held 300 people, clients in designer suits, city officials glad-handing. My 18 employees clustered near the bar, nervous. Press photographers positioned along the walls. Everyone was waiting for me. I arrived at 7:47, 13 minutes late, precisely calculated. The double doors opened. I stepped through. The room went silent. 300 faces turned toward me. I heard the whispers start immediately. "That's Clara Caldwell. I thought she was on medical leave. She looks incredible," I hoped they were thinking. Powerful, healthy. Nothing like the rumors Julian had spread. I wore red. The dress was simple, elegant, impossible to ignore. My hair fell in waves over my shoulders. Diamond earrings, my mother's from the estate I'd inherited. I looked like exactly what I was, a successful architect worth nearly $20 million who'd just survived her husband's attempt to murder her. I walked into that ballroom like I owned it. Because I did. Julian stood near the front, champagne glass in hand, talking to the deputy mayor. He saw me. The glass froze halfway to his lips. His face went white, then red, then settled into a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Eleanor stood 10 feet away wearing black. Appropriate, I thought, for a funeral, hers. I crossed the ballroom floor. People parted. 300 witnesses watching every step. Julian recovered quickly. Years of real estate deals had taught him how to fake sincerity. He moved toward me, arms outstretched, playing the concerned husband. "Clara, sweetheart, what are you doing here? You should be resting." He reached for my arm. I stepped back. "Don't touch me." The nearest guests heard. Conversation stopped. The silence spread like ripples. Julian's smile tightened. "Honey, you're not well. Let me take you home." "I'm perfectly well, Julian. For the first time in months, actually, since I stopped taking the vitamins you were poisoning me with." Someone gasped. The deputy mayor took a step back. "Clara, that's absurd. You're clearly confused." I walked past him to the stage. Owen had positioned a microphone there, connected to the ballroom sound system. I picked it up, tapped it twice. The sound echoed. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to celebrate Caldwell Design's success. Before we begin, there's something you all need to know." 300 people stared at me. Press cameras swiveled in my direction. I haven't been on medical leave. I've been in hiding, not from mental illness, from a murder plot, planned by my husband Julian Caldwell and my sister Eleanor Harper. They've spent the past 8 months systematically poisoning me, forging documents, stealing from my company, and planning my death. The room erupted. Julian started toward the stage. Security Owen's people dressed as hotel staff moved to block him. "That's insane," Julian's voice carried. "She's clearly having a breakdown." "Owen," I said into the microphone. Owen pressed a button. The massive screen behind me lit up. "Exhibit 1, I said calmly. "Toxicology report from Marcus Reed Investigations. Testing of vitamin bottles from my bathroom cabinet. Found to contain lorazepam, zolpidem, and risperidone. Drugs I've never been prescribed. Drugs my husband added to systematically impair my cognitive function." The screen showed the lab results, chemical compounds, dosage levels. The drugs circled in red. Exhibit 2, Julian's Google search history, recovered by forensic investigation. The searches appeared on screen one by one. How long unconscious person? Drown in bathtub. Does autopsy detect Ambien insurance payout for accidental bathtub drowning? Conservatorship Oregon laws. How to forge medical documents. Someone in the back dropped their glass. It shattered on marble floor. Exhibit 3. My voice stayed steady. Clinical. Surveillance footage from my home security system. March 26th, 8:47 p.m. The video played. Julian in our kitchen. Eleanor walking in. Julian pulling her close. The kiss that proved their affair. Eleanor's hand on his chest. The conversation too quiet to hear, but the betrayal crystal clear. A woman near the front, one of my oldest clients, put her hand over her mouth. Exhibit 4. A document found on Julian's computer, titled Clara Timeline, planning my destruction in 4 phases culminating in my death, scheduled for November 15th of this year. He called it C Final, like a meeting, like an appointment to kill his wife. The timeline document filled the screen. Phase 1 through Phase 4, the clinical language, the November 15th date in red. Julian lunged toward the stage. Security held him back. His face was purple with rage. You bitch. The concerned husband mask shattered completely. After everything you can't, Julian Caldwell. A new voice. Agent Jennifer Torres walked into the ballroom from the side door badge held high. Detective Morrison followed along with 4 uniformed Portland police officers. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud forgery, and money laundering. The ballroom exploded into chaos. People standing, shouting, cameras flashing. Torres approached Julian. You have the right to remain silent. This is bullshit. She's lying. The handcuffs clicked. That metallic snap echoed in the sudden silence. Across the room, Detective Morrison approached Eleanor. My sister was crying mascara running black down her face. Eleanor Harper, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Clara, please. Eleanor's voice cracked. I'm your sister. I walked down from the stage, crossed the ballroom floor, stopped 3 feet from her. You stopped being my sister, I said quietly, the day you helped him plan to kill me. They led her away in handcuffs. She was still crying. Julian stood surrounded by officers, hands cuffed behind his back. Torres was still reading his rights. Press photographers were getting every angle. I walked up to him. Torres gave me a slight nod. 30 seconds, her expression said. I leaned close to Julian's ear, close enough that only he could hear. You thought I was weak, I whispered. You thought you could drug me, gaslight me, steal from me, try to kill me, and I'd just disappear quietly, fatal mistake. He turned his head, looked at me with the pure hatred of a narcissist whose mask has been ripped off. Impotent rage because there was nothing he could do. No charm, no lies, no control. Just handcuffs and 300 witnesses who'd seen everything. I stepped back. Torres led him toward the doors. The ballroom was pandemonium now. Guests talking, reporters shouting questions, employees crying with relief. Owen appeared at my side. You did it, he said quietly. I watched Julian and Eleanor being escorted out. Watched my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, disappear through the doors in handcuffs, his entire life collapsing in a single evening. Yes, I said, I did. Owen's office felt different on April 16th. The oak desk gleamed under afternoon sun, but the air carried weight, the kind that settles before a storm breaks. I sat in the leather chair facing the door hands folded in my lap to stop them from shaking. Amanda Wright, the CPS caseworker, had brought Lily straight from school 20 minutes ago. Now my daughter stood in the doorway, backpack hanging from one shoulder, eyes red and swollen. Mom! Her voice cracked on the single word. I rose and crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into my arms. She smelled like vanilla shampoo and fear. Her shoulders shook and I held tighter, feeling 13 years of love and 4 months of terror collide in that embrace. I'm here, baby. I'm safe. We're both safe now. She pulled back, studying my face as if checking for cracks. They said Dad that he was going to sit with me. I guided her to the sofa, Owen quietly leaving to give us privacy. Amanda stood by the window, a silent guardian. I took Lily's hands cold despite the warm room and began at the beginning. I told her about the vitamins laced with drugs, about the bathtub on December 14th when she'd saved my life without knowing someone had tried to end it, about the conservatorship plan, the forged documents, the life insurance policy with a $10 million payout, about Eleanor's role in the conspiracy. I watched my daughter's face cycle through disbelief, horror, and finally a terrible, resigned understanding. "I knew something was wrong," she whispered when I finished. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. "When did you start to suspect?" "Early April, maybe the 3rd or 4th. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "You'd been gone for 2 weeks. Dad kept saying you were at a treatment center for stress. But one night, I came downstairs for water and I heard them in the kitchen. Them, Dad and Aunt Eleanor." Lily's voice hardened on the title. "They were drinking wine, laughing. Dad said something like, 'We're finally free.' And Eleanor clinked her glass against his. She said, 'To new beginnings.' They were celebrating Mom. You were supposed to be sick, maybe dying for all I knew, and they were celebrating." The image cut through me, my husband and sister toasting my absence like a victory. I forced myself to breathe evenly. "What did you do?" Lily looked down at her hands. "I went back upstairs. I couldn't sleep. The next morning I started paying attention, really paying attention. And..." She reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone, an older iPhone with a cracked screen protector. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it and opened the Photos app. She navigated to a hidden album labeled School Project 2025. "There are 47 videos in here," she said quietly. "I recorded them over 6 weeks, from early March to mid-April." My breath caught. 47. Dad never thought I was paying attention. Her voice carried a bitter edge I'd never heard before. "He thinks I'm just a kid glued to social media. So when I sat at the kitchen table doing homework or scrolling through Instagram, he and Eleanor talked like I wasn't even there." She tapped the first video. The timestamp read March 7th, 8:43 p.m. The angle was low phone propped against a textbook. In the frame, Julian stood at the kitchen counter back to the camera, crushing pills with a mortar and pestle. Eleanor sat at the table just out of focus. "How much longer?" Eleanor's voice tinny through the speaker. "Another month. Maybe 6 weeks. The dose is up to 3 times the starting level. Dr. Bradford says if she keeps taking it, permanent damage is inevitable. And if she stops..." "She won't. I control everything she ingests." The video ended. Lily swiped to the next. March 12th. Julian on the phone pacing the living room. "Hayes, I need the final documents by May 10th. No mistakes this time. I'm paying you $50,000. I expect perfection." Another swipe. March 19th. Eleanor and Julian in the home office door half open. "The life insurance company confirmed the policy. $10 million if it looks accidental. We just have to be patient." Lily scrolled faster. 20 videos, 30, 40, each one a fragment of conspiracy captured by a 13-year-old girl pretending to play on her phone. Julian discussing conservatorship timelines, Eleanor Googling undetectable poisons, both of them planning my institutional commitment, my staged suicide, my funeral. "Dad thought I was texting friends," Lily said, voice hollow. "He never checked, never asked. He just assumed I was too young and too stupid to matter." I stared at the phone, then at my daughter. "Lily, this is incredibly dangerous. If he'd found out..." "I know." She met my eyes and I saw something ancient and exhausted in her gaze. "But I couldn't just sit there and let him hurt you." I didn't know what he was planning exactly, but I knew it was bad. I thought if I had proof, maybe someone would believe me. Owen knocked softly and re-entered Marcus Reed behind him. I handed Owen the phone without a word. He watched 3 videos, face darkening with each clip. Marcus leaned over his shoulder, jaw tight. "This is gold," Owen said finally, voice rough. "Lily, this evidence is exactly what we need. It proves conspiracy, premeditation, and duration. A jury will see your father and Eleanor planning your mother's murder in real time over weeks while you sat 3 feet away." "Will she have to testify?" I asked, protective instinct flaring. "Possibly, but these videos speak for themselves. We'll do everything to minimize her exposure." Owen looked at Lily with something close to awe. "You're incredibly brave." You know that... Lily shrugged, tears sliding down her cheeks. I just wanted my mom back. I pulled her close again, and this time she sobbed deep, shuddering cries that shook us both. I whispered promises into her hair that she was safe, that I would never let anyone hurt her, that Julian would answer for every single thing he'd done. When she finally quieted, I tilted her face up to mine. You saved my life twice, Lily. Once in December and again now. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know how extraordinary you are. She nodded, exhausted. Amanda stepped forward gently. Let's get you something to eat, sweetheart. There's a cafe downstairs. As they left, Owen copied the videos onto his laptop, labeling each file with timestamps and descriptions. Marcus watched over his shoulder, shaking his head. Julian Caldwell is the most arrogant man I've ever investigated, Marcus said. He orchestrated an entire murder plot in front of his daughter because he assumed she didn't matter. Fatal mistake, I murmured. Owen glanced up, a grim smile on his face. Literally. I stood at the window looking down at the street where Lily and Amanda walked toward the cafe. My daughter, my brave, brilliant daughter, had handed us the final piece of evidence we needed. 47 videos. 6 weeks of recorded conspiracy. Proof that Julian's plan wasn't impulsive or accidental, but calculated and sustained. He'd underestimated everyone. Dr. Sterling, Marcus, Owen, me. But most of all, he'd underestimated the quiet, phone-obsessed teenager he'd dismissed as irrelevant. And that underestimation would cost him everything. The Multnomah County Courthouse felt like a tomb on the morning of July 15th. I sat behind the prosecution table, hands folded tight, Owen beside me. 12 jurors watched from their box as District Attorney Rachel Montgomery stood to begin. This is a case about a man who decided his wife was worth more dead than alive. Julian sat at the defense table in a pressed gray suit, jaw clenched. His attorney, Thomas Garrett, shuffled papers nervously. Across the aisle, Eleanor sat alone in an orange jumpsuit. Her plea deal, 10 years for full cooperation, had been finalized 2 weeks ago. She wouldn't look at me. Judge Michael Harrison, a stern man with silver hair, nodded to Montgomery. Proceed. Day 1 and 2. The evidence begins. Montgomery moved through the timeline like clockwork. September 2024. Julian researching conservatorship laws. December 14th, the bathtub drowning attempt. January through April, systematic poisoning with 3 psychiatric drugs hidden in my vitamins. March 23rd, $50,000 cash to Paul Hayes for forged documents. May 15th, arrest at the gala. On day 2, Dr. Raymond Bradford took the stand. He projected 2 brain scans onto the courtroom screen, one healthy one showing severe atrophy. This is a normal 35-year-old brain, he said, pointing to the first image. This is what misses. Caldwell's brain would have looked like after another 8 weeks on the drug cocktail her husband was administering. A juror in the front row, a woman in her 50s, covered her mouth. Montgomery held up 3 evidence bags containing vitamin bottles. Doctor, what did you find inside these? Lorazepam, Zolpidem, and risperidone. 2 milligrams, 5 milligrams, and 1 milligram respectively, concealed in multivitamin capsules. Who prepared Mrs. Caldwell's vitamins each morning? The defendant. Did she know what she was taking? No. Julian's knuckles turned white, gripping the table edge. Day 3, the money trail. Forensic accountant Lisa Bradford walked the jury through Julian's financial conspiracy. $43,000 stolen via forged credit cards. $430,000 siphoned from my company to cover his crypto debts. The $5 million life insurance policy with forged signature and a $10 million double indemnity clause. Montgomery displayed an enlarged image of Julian's calendar. November 15th, 2025. The entry reads, See Final. Below that, call Hayes, need documents by 11:10. He handles arrangements. The courtroom went silent. What does see final mean in your professional opinion? Lisa's voice stayed steady. The scheduled date of Clara Caldwell's murder. 2 jurors exchanged horrified glances. Agent Jennifer Torres followed, playing FBI recordings of Julian paying Hayes. Julian's voice filled the courtroom. My wife, Clara Caldwell. I need documentation. She's mentally incompetent. And the $50,000 Hayes asked. Cash, untraceable. Eleanor's voice in the background, "Make it airtight." The jury sat motionless, listening to conspiracy unfold in real time. Day 4. Betrayal and Bravery. Eleanor took the stand on the fourth morning, trembling. Montgomery wasted no time. "When did the defendant first involve you in this plan?" "Last August." Eleanor's voice cracked. "He said Clara had inherited millions. He wanted it. What was your role?" "I was supposed to confirm she was losing her mind. After conservatorship, I'd act as trustee while Julian controlled the money." "Did you know he planned to kill her?" Long pause. "Yes. After the bathtub in December. He told me it was supposed to look accidental, but Lily came home early and saved her. Julian was furious. That's when he switched to slow poisoning." Julian's face flushed crimson. Garrett grabbed his forearm, whispering urgently. Julian jerked away. "Did you try to stop him?" Eleanor sobbed. "No, I wanted the money too. I felt nothing watching her cry. She'd helped plan my murder. Her remorse meant nothing now." Then Lily walked to the witness stand. My 13-year-old daughter looked impossibly small in the wooden chair. Amanda Wright, the CPS caseworker, stood nearby. Judge Harrison spoke gently. "Take your time, Lily." Montgomery approached slowly. "Can you tell us what happened on December 14th? "I came home early from a friend's house." Lily's voice was quiet but clear. "I found Mom in the bathtub. She wasn't moving. The water was over her face." "What did you do?" "I pulled her out, called 911. The dispatcher told me how to do CPR. I kept doing it until the ambulance came." "Did you see your father that night?" "Yes." "Where was he?" "Downstairs. When the paramedics said Mom would be okay, I saw his face." "What did you see?" Lily looked directly at Julian. He was angry, like he was mad she survived. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Harrison's gavel cracked down. Julian started to rise. Garrett yanked him back into his seat. Montgomery introduced the 47 videos next. The jury watched Julian crushing pills in the kitchen, Eleanor discussing timelines, both celebrating my absence while Lily pretended to play on her phone 3 feet away. When Lily stepped down, she ran to me. I held her tight, both of us shaking. Day 5, the collapse. Montgomery's closing argument on July 19th was devastating. The defense will claim misunderstanding, but you've seen the videos, the forged documents, the poisoned vitamins. The calendar marked C final. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was premeditated murder stopped only by a child's courage. Garrett tried his closing, reasonable doubt, circumstantial evidence, but his voice lacked conviction. Judge Harrison turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, you will now..." Julian exploded to his feet. "This is bullshit." Garrett lunged for him. "Julian, sit down." Julian shoved him away and whirled toward the jury, face contorted with rage. "You don't understand. I deserve that money. I grew up with nothing. I spent 12 years playing the perfect husband to a woman who never appreciated me. 12 years wasted on someone who didn't earn what her parents gave her. Nidini ditim fwaitin diyant." "Mr. Caldwell," Judge Harrison's gavel thundered. "Sit down immediately or I will hold you in contempt." But Julian was beyond control. He jabbed a finger at me. "She didn't deserve $18 million. I did the work, I played the role perfectly. And she just sat there with her inheritance acting like I was lucky to have her." His voice climbed to a shriek. "And that brat," he pointed at Lily, who flinched against me, "ruined everything. A stupid kid with a cell phone destroyed months of planning." 2 bailiffs moved in. Garrett stood frozen, ashen-faced. Julian's laughter turned manic. "You think I'm sorry? I'm sorry I failed. I should have held her under longer in December. I should have doubled the drug doses. I was too careful." The bailiffs grabbed his arms. Julian fought them, still screaming. "I deserved it. She was weak. I was strong. I should have won." They dragged him toward the side exit. His voice echoed off the walls. "I'm the victim here. I suffered through 12 years, married to that woman. I earned that money." The door slammed. Silence crashed down like a wave. Judge Harrison exhaled slowly. He looked at the 12 stunned faces in the jury box. "Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed the defendant's voluntary statement. It will be entered into the record. You are dismissed to begin deliberations." The jury filed out, several shaking their heads in disgust. Owen leaned close. He just confessed to attempted murder in front of 12 witnesses. I nodded, unable to speak. Lily pressed against my side, trembling. I wrapped both arms around her and held on. Julian had finally told the truth, and the truth had destroyed him completely. Outside the courtroom windows, Portland's summer sun blazed down, indifferent and bright. Inside, I sat with my daughter and waited for justice to arrive. It wouldn't take long. The courtroom felt smaller on July 25th, as if the weight of 18 tasks and 8 months of evidence had compressed the air itself. Judge Harrison entered at 9:15 and the packed gallery rose. Julian stood at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, wrists shackled, while Eleanor stood separately at her own podium staring at the floor. The jury had deliberated 4 hours 2 days earlier before returning guilty verdicts on every count. Now Judge Harrison adjusted his glasses and fixed Julian with a look of undisguised contempt. "Mr. Caldwell, before I impose sentence, does the victim wish to speak?" I stood, Lily gripping my left hand and Owen touching my shoulder. My voice came out steady. "Your Honor, this man spent 8 months poisoning me. He tried to drown me in December. He planned my murder down to a calendar date marked C final. He didn't just try to kill me, he tried to erase my mind so I'd forget my daughter's name. But he failed because he underestimated everyone. Dr. Sterling, Marcus, Owen, my daughter with her phone. He was wrong about all of us." I sat. Judge Harrison nodded slowly. "Mr. Caldwell, in 23 years on the bench, I've rarely seen malice this calculated. You spent months destroying your wife's mind and body for money. I'm imposing 45 years. 25 for attempted murder, 20 consecutive for conspiracy and fraud. You're 48. You'll be 93 at parole eligibility." Julian went white. The bailiff led him out in silence. Eleanor received 8 years under her plea agreement, led away crying while I felt nothing watching her go. Outside, Owen squeezed my shoulder as Portland's summer heat pressed down. "It's over." For the first time in nearly a year, I believed him. By early September, Lily and I had moved into a house in the West Hills, 3 bedrooms, wide windows facing east to catch morning light. No shadows anywhere. Lily started 8th grade and twice-weekly therapy with Dr. Morgan, working through nightmares and trauma. Some mornings she cried getting ready for school. Other days she laughed at breakfast. Healing wasn't linear, but it was happening. Caldwell Design Associates exploded under employee ownership. The 18 people who now held 30% equity voted to keep the name, but added a tagline, "Built on Trust." We won 2 new city contracts in September, and by October, revenue had jumped 40%. Marcus stopped by the office in early October with a grin. "Turns out people work harder when they own the place." "Revolutionary concept," I said, and we both laughed. That same week, I met with Owen and Marcus at a coffee shop downtown to pitch an idea that had been growing since the trial ended. I want to start a foundation for financial abuse and gaslighting victims. Free legal help, private investigators, toxicology testing therapy, safe housing, whatever it takes to help people escape and fight back. I'm calling it the Lily Foundation. Owen leaned forward. "When do we start?" We launched in mid-November. Within 2 weeks, we had 17 clients, mostly women, 3 men all trapped in relationships where money and sanity were being stolen. By December, we'd helped 43 people document abuse, gather evidence, and file charges. Each case felt like saving myself all over again. On a freezing January afternoon, 6 months after the sentencing, I stood backstage at TEDx